Podcasting from the Chicagoland area, this is Game On with Jackson Stuart, where we discuss men's lifestyle, focusing on sex, fitness, relationships, business, and more. We'll be interviewing the best of the best, the hot shots, and the rising stars in the worlds of modeling, fitness, cooking, and more. Influencers who are discussing keeping it sexy while at the top of their game. I'm your host, Jackson Stuart. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the game.
Follow Game On with Jackson Stuart on YouTube at Game On with Jack, on the official blog www.gameonwithjack.blog, and at the new store www.gameonwithjack.shop. Keep it sexy and game on.
What if you could be a better player for the cost of one more cup of coffee a month? Get access to a growing library of lit erotica, behind-the-scenes action, and player's guides with tips on drinking, cooking, fitness, dating, sex, and life after dark. Low tier rate while offer lasts. Patreon.com, Game On with Jack. Good people, sexy people, welcome to another episode of Game On with Jackson Stuart. I'm your host, and as always, thank you guys so much for taking time out to catch the podcast, listen to my ideas, check out our guests. Really appreciate it. A couple announcements, as always, I like to kick off the show with inviting you guys to catch Game On with Jack on YouTube, which is at Game On with Jack. Check out Game On with Jack, patreon.com, where you can subscribe and get Game On guides as soon as you sign up. The blog is gameonwithjack.blog, Twitter at Game On with Jack, and of course, check out the brand new player shop, gameonwithjack.shop. Going to be dropping new ebooks this week. Super well priced. Maybe let's call it a golden week, right? That's what they call this. You can drop like a couple bucks and get a guide that's really going to help you level up your game. Real talk. Today we're talking about the Sigma male. If, you guys have heard me talk about alphas, betas, but apparently there's a thing called Sigma males. And I find it pretty fascinating because, in my world, I've only really seen the first two, right? The alphas and the betas, but Sigmas are a thing. And, I'd be remiss to not include them in the discussion of, the game of being a man and being a better man. So here we go. So to start off, let's define what a Sigma male is. And simply put, a Sigma male is a man who doesn't conform to societal norms and doesn't fit into any specific category or archetype. So they're kind of like, the catch-all. You're not a beta, you're not an alpha, but you're not really either, but you also hold traits of both. So, boom, we're going to call you a Sigma because that's pretty much the only option that we have left. We got to title something. We love to categorize things. So, Sigma males are often seen as lone wolves who prefer to operate independently, and they tend to keep to themselves. So it's definitely some of that alpha male quality. And I'll compare the three a little bit more later. Sigma males are not necessarily antisocial, but they prioritize their individuality and freedom over social connections. So, they like to be on their own. They don't have to be part of a group of guys or a pack of guys all hanging out. They can be by themselves, and they're okay with it. And I think that's the big difference with betas, is that betas secretly want to be better, but they can't. Like, they don't have it in themselves to be something different. And Sigmas this is who they are, and they're rock solid good with it. So what are some of the characteristics of a Sigma male? Well, let's see. Firstly, they're highly independent and self-sufficient. They don't feel the need, they don't feel the need to rely on others for support or validation. They're comfortable being alone. They're highly self-aware and introspective, and they take responsibility for their actions and decisions. They have a very strong sense of self and are not easily swayed by external influences. So a Sigma is really, grounded in who they are. They're not pushed around. They're not changed. They're not altered by other people and what other people want. But they also don't, they're not sticking up a big middle finger at the group who may want to try and talk them into things. So some examples of sigmas, and I did a quick deep dive on different types, like literary or in cinema, cinematically or literally. Did I say that right? Yeah. What are some examples of sigmas? James Bond is a sigma male, right? That's very interesting because you would think he's an alpha, and it's like anything, it's a scale. James Bond is, he's got that lone wolf thing going on. He's self-sufficient, and he doesn't really let outside influences change who he is. Batman, once again, lone wolf, strong sense of I should not have tried to say that, individualism, while also being very capable and resourceful. Like, there's no sigmas are sigmas, and they're very happy and comfortable. They don't regret being sigmas, and I find that interesting. John Rambo, he's another lone wolf, self-sufficient, strong sense of being an individual. And lastly, for those who've seen Fight Club, Tyler Durden, once again, charismatic, super smart, but lone wolf, defies societal norms, and has a strong sense of self. So you can see trends with these characters, right? Like, they could easily be alphas. They could easily dominate and run a group, but they choose not to. While they are powerful in who they are and comfortable in who they are, they don't draw a crowd, and that's what alphas tend to do. Like, you put an alpha in a room, and they're going to become like a party. Like, people are going to want to hang out with them. People are going to want to be part of what they have going on. And sigmas, I mean, shit, how many people want to join Batman's team? Well, yes and no, but sigmas are kind of like that middle ground between alphas, and betas. They're like the healthiest version of both. They don't have to dominate. They don't have to be the center of attention like some alphas tend to be, but they also don't regret who and what they are, like betas tend to. So secondly, sigma males are often seen as mysterious or enigmatic. They tend to keep to themselves and don't reveal much about their personal lives or inner thoughts. That's fine. That's totally Batman. This can make them seem kind of aloof or detached. And if you follow me on YouTube, which you guys totally should be following me on YouTube, this week we talk about challenges for sigma males, and I'll do a follow-up show about that. But one of the issues is misunderstanding. That sigmas the style in which they carry themselves and communicate can be misconstrued and misunderstood. They're not detached, but they're just simply private. They desire autonomy, and they value personal space and freedom. So, so do alphas, and so do sigmas. For betas, freedom is a challenge, and it's actually more like a freedom is something that they give up because betas just tend to fall in line with whatever the dominant force is. Third trait of a sigma is that they are extremely intelligent and creative. They're typically free thinkers who are not bound by, conventional ways of doing things, conventional wisdom or tradition. They have a unique perspective on the world and are not afraid to challenge the status quo. And they're very adaptable. And sigmas can thrive in a variety of situations, even if they don't like it, even if they don't fit in. But for the short period of time that they are in this crowd, they can work it, they can handle it. So that having been said, let's address some common misconceptions about sigma males. And firstly, that they're not necessarily introverted or antisocial. They value their independence, but they're still capable of forming deep connections with others. They simply choose to do so on their own terms and in their own time. Secondly, the sigma males are not necessarily arrogant or narcissistic, and they come off that way, and that's part of their aloof or detached nature. It's their part of their nature that seems aloof or detached, but is not really aloof or detached. They value their individuality, and so much to the point that they seem like separated or apart from what's going on. They understand the importance of collaboration, though, and teamwork. So it's not like you put a Sigma on a team and they're going to have a fit, that they have to work with other people, they have to communicate. That's not the case. They can handle it. It's just not their initial go-to. They're not opposed to working with others, but they prefer to do so in a way that respects who they are and respects their independence. So if it's at work, they might be awesome on the team. They contribute, but maybe they don't want to go out after hours and hang out at the bar, along with everybody else. Maybe that's just not their thing. If it's in your group of friends, maybe they're good for a drink, but they don't stay for dinner. Or maybe they're good for a drink and dinner, but they don't go to like whatever, the next place, the next spot, the next bar, the next club. So they can be part of a pack, of a group, but they may not go as deep as everybody wants them to, or as deep as everybody else goes. Lastly, Sigma males are not necessarily better or worse than other male archetypes. They're just different. And I know sometimes it seems like, I'm kind of anti-beta, and I'm really not. I'm anti-beta if you don't want to be a beta. I'm anti-beta if it's a question of confidence, if it's a question of communication. If you want to be a beta, more power to you. I want you to be who you want to be. But if you want to level up the game to becoming an alpha, and I'm not saying alphas are perfect. Dear God, alphas are not. But the view is better from where alphas sit than anyone else. Sigmas are just different, and they have their own strengths and their own weaknesses, and they're not superior to alphas or betas, and they're not also inferior. They're just different. And they're unique, and they should be appreciated for their own qualities and characteristics. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of guys out there who think they're beta males, and they're really not. You're a Sigma, and I have personally put a lot of emphasis on alphas and betas, but I recognize that Sigmas are a legit thing, and we're going to keep them in mind on future shows for sure. Now, how do you define an alpha male? Because we've talked about it on the show. Maybe you haven't caught those shows, which shame on you fellas. Go back and listen to that shit. It's good. Alpha males are often defined as being dominant, confident, and assertive. And in the past I've said that they protect others, they are decisive, and they are not pushed around. Alphas are typically the leaders of a group, and they're known for their charisma, their social skills, and their ability to take charge in any situation. If you put an alpha in a room full of people not talking, you give them 5 minutes and they'll have a damn party in that place. And it'll be kick-ass, it'll be wild, and it'll all be, I'd say, centered around that one person, because that makes alphas sound very, very like narcissistic and self-driven. But just by nature and by magnetism and charisma, alphas tend to be the center of attention. Now, alphas can kick something off, like, oh man, like that was a kick-ass party that an alpha started, but that doesn't mean that they have to be the topic of every conversation. They have to be in everybody's mix. That's just that. Alphas are great igniters of events. Alphas often are competitive and very driven. It's like you're not going to have to tell an alpha to do something more than like once. You're not going to have to give them motivation. They're self-motivated, but they can be perceived as aggressive and intimidating, because alphas bring a lot to the table. There's a lot coming at you when you deal with alphas. On the opposite side of the scale, you got betas, and betas are typically passive, introverted, and submissive. They can lack the confidence and assertiveness of alpha males, and it can be harder for them to assert themselves in social situations. They're the guys that go along with everything and anything. But the problem is, and if that's the way you are, that's cool, but it's that beta's like hurt inside, because they're doing things they don't want to do. They're talking to people they don't want to talk to. They're maybe laughing at jokes about themselves or at others that they don't find funny. They can't stand up for themselves. Now on the plus side, beta males can be more nurturing and supportive than alphas because they're not, betas tend to be better listeners than alphas because they're not trying to come up with a solution or handle shit every 5 seconds or dominate and straighten things out in their mind. They're just kind of there and able to listen and support, and they're better at building relationships and forming connections because they're not like going 100 miles an hour physically or mentally or emotionally. They're more laid back and allow people to like come to them and lean on them for support and for connection. And like I summarized before, sigmas, it's a newer concept, but they're described as independent, introverted, and mysterious. And they don't fit into either of those two traditional groups, alphas and betas, but they take a little bit from both. And I think that's kind of key to see that they're, sigmas are where the guys that aren't alphas and aren't betas kind of shake up and end up. So they don't fit the traditional social hierarchy, and they prefer to kind of go their own way. But that also means that they're not against joining the group or being part of the pack or the party or whatever. They can handle it. It's just not what they initially jumped to. And sigmas are seen, where alphas are seen as aggressive and betas are seen as being submissive. Sigmas are being seen as being aloof, detached, but very smart and very self-sufficient. So, can you identify a sigma male? Well, it can be difficult because they do have traits of the other two groups, and they often keep to themselves. So it's like, how the hell are you going to identify them if you can't find them? They don't reveal too much about their personal lives. They play everything kind of close to the vest. But there are some common signs that will let you know you're dealing with a sigma male. They're very independent. They're very creative. They're very self-sufficient. They have a unique perspective on things, and they have a very strong sense of who they are, a strong sense of self. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being a sigma. Nothing wrong with being an alpha. Nothing wrong with being a beta if that's what you want to be. And we're going to have some follow-up shows about sigmas, like, more in depth about the challenges they face, what to do if you're an alpha or a beta and you want to be a sigma, what to do if you're a sigma and you don't want to be. Like, let's say you want to join one of the other two groups. How do you change? How do you adapt? How do you evolve and level up in the game to be something slightly different? So, folks, in conclusion, remember that sigma males are unique. They're intriguing. They're another aspect of masculinity that's gained a lot of popularity in the recent years. Most of your quote-unquote anti-heroes kind of have this sigma vibe, John Wick. John Wick's, he's an alpha and he's beating everybody's ass. But it's these guys that can do their own thing, but work with other people. They can sync with others, but they can also operate apart. They seem mysterious, they seem enigmatic, but sigmas are just simply individuals who are all about their autonomy and individuality. They're not necessarily introverted or antisocial, and they're not arrogant or narcissistic or think they're too good or stuck up or whatever. They're different. It's a different vibe. And, if you identify guys that are friends of yours or maybe you yourself or relatives that are sigmas, appreciate who they are, appreciate their strengths, their qualities, lean on those strengths and qualities. Sigma can go out there and get stuff done that maybe needed 2 or 3 people. He can handle it by himself and he's good at it. And, even with the other two groups, appreciate people who want to take the time to build you up and not tear you down. Appreciate the people who take the time to support you. Appreciate the people who help you level up the game. So, hey guys, just a reminder, catch me on Game On with Jack on YouTube, Game On with Jack on Patreon.com, Game On with Jack on Twitter, the new shop, GameOnWithJack.shop, new ebooks going up this week. And lastly, if you guys have not signed up, if you want to get your free copy of 15 Confidence Commandments, awesome PDF, 15 great tips on raising your confidence. You can never be, well, I shouldn't say you can never be too confident because then you're an arrogant bastard, but you can never have too much good confidence. We could all use a tip here or there. Go to gameonwithjack.aweb, A-W-E-B as in boy, .page. Sign up right now, and you'll get that confidence guide immediately. You'll get the steps emailed to you. It's automatic. You can do it any time of day, but definitely don't sleep on that. And follow me on the other platforms. Love to have you guys. Love to keep this, keep the audience building. And that's it, folks. You guys have a great weekend. Keep it sexy. Game on.